Hello, this is Daniel, and today we will be starting our new series in our Journal I channel, the Brain series. For the first official video, we will discuss about the basics of brain, such as several brain parts and neuroanatomy. Then, let's get started. So, starting from this video, we'll talk about the brain basics and some parts of the brain. So, as you can see in the left picture, the brain picture, the largest part of the human brain is cerebrum. It is divided into two large separate hemispheres, as you can see in the right photo here. And the hemispheres are connected by bundles of nerve fibers, which is called corpus callosum. It's not shown in this photo, but there's this part called corpus callosum that connects the two hemispheres so that information from each hemisphere can be transported to the other side. For this brain parts, we can divide it into four big lobes. Those are called the frontal lobe, which is colored in the bright blue color here, parietal lobe, which is colored in yellow, occipital lobe, which is colored in red, and the temporal lobe, which is colored in green. Frontal lobes, as you can see, are located in the front of our brain, and they coordinate the voluntary movements, something that the actions that we do because we intend and we are conscious that we are doing, such as speech, memory, and feeling emotions, or higher cognitive skills, such as planning before you study, and problem solving, and many aspects of personality or human interactions can be coordinated in the frontal lobe. And the parietal lobe, the yellow region, it is located at the top of our brain, and they integrate sensory signals from the skin, so they coordinate the perception of your skin, and they process tastes and some types of visual information. But occipital lobe is specialized for visual information integration because occipital lobes process visual information and they are responsible for recognizing colors, shapes, and integrating them into complex visual understanding by sending them all throughout the brain regions by using routes such as corpus callosum from left to right for us to understand what we are looking at. Lastly, the temporal lobes, the green area, lie in the sides of our brain, and because they are closer to our ears, they carry out the visual processing and interpretation of auditory information. The model that you are seeing in the right side of this presentation slide is the model of a neuron. There are so many different parts, but I'll explain some very important parts. So, individual neurons, firstly, are excitatory or inhibitory, meaning some of the neurons activate electricity and some of them do not. We will discuss this part in a later video. Basically, neurons that pass signals forward through a circuit and eventually sending outputs to other parts of the brain tend to be excitatory, and the neurons that are typically local and loop their responses back to earlier segments of a circuit are generally inhibitory. The interplay between these signals are very important in learning, tuning and smoothing the signals sent to the body and other parts of the brain. So what is a neuron? Neuron is a specialized cell that can transmit electric signals to other nerve cells, muscles, glands, or other parts of nervous systems, including the spinal cord. There are three big parts of a neuron: cell body, dendrites, and an axon. The cell body, also called soma sometimes, contains the neuron's nucleus here and most of its cytoplasm, just like any other cells in our body. Cell body also has the function to create some of the proteins that neurons use and some of the neurotransmitters that we are going to discuss later that the neurons use to communicate with each other. Dendrites are the branched projections, illustrated these parts like tree branches that reach out to the other neurons to receive information. They collect the incoming signals from other neurons. And lastly, this long extended part is called the axon of a neuron. The axons are where the electric signals that an individual neuron received passes down through the axon, and then at last the electric signals are passed across the synapse to other cells at axon terminals, which are the parts over here. Illustrate here too. Let's move on to some of the vocabularies that we identify some of the parts of nervous system and our brains with. So basically, let's start with the right one. This seems more simpler. So basically, let's start with the front and back side of our brain when we observe it from the bird's eye view or top view. From a top view, we can identify the front side of our brain as rostral or anterior. Conversely, the back side of our brains can be called caudal or posterior. Also, this middle part of our brain are called medial, whereas the outer side, the lateral side of our brains are called lateral, which is very intuitive. Moving on to the left picture. As you can see, the front side is called rostral and the back side is called caudal, as we discussed earlier. And this is a little complicated, but let's go on with it. When we look at the brain from the side view, the top of our brain is called dorsal, and the part of the brain that is closer to the ground or floor is called ventral. But when we are discussing about the spinal cords and the nervous system in our back, we tend to call the side that is closer to our back dorsal and the side that is closer to our front body ventral. So this and this relationship could be a little complicated, but this gets better as you get used to it. On the other hand, for these nervous system like spinal cords, the part that is closer to our head is called rostral, and the part that is closer to our legs are called caudal. So this part and this part correlates to each other, although they are different in the direction they illustrate, and this part also correlates to each other. Next, we're going to discuss briefly about the different methods of how we dissect a brain. So there are three main types: coronal, sagittal, and horizontal. Starting with horizontal, this is very intuitive, that if you cut the brain in horizontal manner, imagine you're connecting your two ears in a straight line. That's horizontal. For sagittal, imagine you're dividing your body in half based on a line that crosses your body into, like, basically imagine you're dividing your eyes into two different parts. This analogy is a little weird, but that's how sagittal plane works, and I believe this picture explains that very well. Lastly, for coronal plane, imagine you're dividing your front body and back body separately. That's what this image is displaying. So there are three types of cutting the brain and looking at it, three ways of looking at it: horizontal, sagittal, and coronal. I hope this image helps you with understanding how this cutting works. So that's it for today's video about brief neuroanatomy, and thank you for watching. We're going to continue with this brain series for about next 4 or 5 videos, and it's going to be interesting, I believe. Let's see you in the next video. Bye!